What's up, everybody? Welcome to Wayne's World. This is episode number 7, and today's date is April 23rd, 2021. So, lots of stuff going on these days. Crazy stuff for all of us. So for starters, I'm going to talk about our business a little bit like I always do, and then we'll get into some other things. So last weekend, we had a class on Saturday and a class on Sunday. As usual, everything went off without a hitch. Great group of students in both classes. I extremely appreciate people coming to see me for training and knowledge and firearms information and skills. And we have another class tomorrow, semi-full class. We always have openings. So if you want in, get a hold of us. Next weekend, kind of a big weekend. We have a CPL class on Sunday, which is normal, but we also have our first of the year defensive pistol course on Saturday. And as soon as I posted that message that we're running that class, I had like 10 or 12 people get a hold of me instantly. And since then, we haven't had a lot of people contact us about that class. That's the class that you want to take. That's the training that you want to do. That's the stuff that's going to get you to the next level and start getting you extremely comfortable with your firearm in defensive shooting situations. It's all going to be outside shooting. Most of our targets are going to be steel targets, which are way more fun to shoot than paper. And we're going to add some stress into the mix, run some shot timers. And I'm going to do it with you. And because, I mean, you can never train too much. And so is my other partner. We're going to be doing the course right along with everybody. So get a hold of us if you want in on that class. It's going to be extremely beneficial for everybody. It starts at 9 a.m. on May 1st at Central Michigan Sportsman's Club. So on to other topics. Lots of things going on in the news these days, and lots of propaganda. I don't know if I'm supposed to use that word or not, but I don't know what's going to get me kicked off of YouTube. Something eventually, probably. But I don't know how people don't see that a big majority of our government, all the politicians, a lot of the people that work for the government that aren't elected, the media, the vast majority of it anyways, professional athletes, Hollywood, big business, these Fortune 500 companies, they're all working in cahoots with each other. And I don't know how people don't see that. I mean, I've said this before, but come on, what kind of statement is it that Coke made where they tell their employees to be less white? Really, how much more racist can you get? So you have half of our country screaming about, oh, everyone's racist and blah, blah, blah. But the people that are screaming it the loudest are the ones that are doing the racist stuff. And I don't know how people can't see that the elite are trying to divide the rest of us, because we way, way, way outnumber them. And as long as we're divided and fighting amongst ourselves, we're not a threat to them. We're not a threat to their pocketbook, and we're not a threat to their agenda. So we have to look past all this crap, because I mean the ending of the trial of Derek Chauvin was this week, and our president came out and basically said you need to render a guilty verdict. And then Maxine Waters went to the city where I think it was Minneapolis and said the same thing. If we don't get the verdict we want, we're gonna raise hell and incite violence is what she was doing. And the ironic part about all of that is that woman went there specifically to incite violence and to pressure the jury into making a certain decision. And before she got there, she requested a police escort. So this woman who is all against the police, defund the police, anti-police, is requesting police to protect her at government-paid dollars, our tax dollars. And Rashida Tlaib came out and said, we need to get rid of the police. We need to get rid of incarceration. So you want murderers and pedophiles and terrorists and all these people running around out there in the mix in public. But all of these people that scream this the loudest, they are protected 24/7, 365 by our tax dollars. But they want the rest of us to, number one, be disarmed, number two, lose police protection, and number three, open the border. I mean, so that's a recipe for disaster, no matter which way you look at it. And that's the agenda that they're pushing. And everybody screams racist, racist, racist about everything that happens. And I want to read you some numbers before I get started on the rest of the stuff that we're getting into. I got to find it here. I apologize. Okay. So this is a little bit old data. It's from, I want to say 2017, and I'm going to read it, so I won't be looking at the camera right now. Okay, so as far as the 2019 census went, there are 328,240,469 people in the United States. There's 670,279 full-time police officers and 900,000 sworn-in law enforcement officers in the United States. There are approximately, and now the numbers are starting to get important, there are approximately 2.1 police officers per 1,000 people. So 2 police officers or 1 police officer per 500 people in the United States. Police officers make up less than 0.21% of our population. Officers come in contact with 17% of the population on an annual basis. The numbers are getting better. Bear with me. That means that there are 55,800,880 contacts per year by police officers, which at the time of the last report led to 26,000 excessive force complaints against officers. Now, if you just look at that number, 26,000, it seems like a high number, but that's 0.047% of contacts. And only 8% of those complaints were sustained. So that's a minuscule nothing number. That's 2,080 out of every 53 million plus contacts, or 0.0039%. So about as rare as you can get. You are 7 times more likely to be murdered, 15 times more likely to be killed in a traffic accident, and 42 times more likely to be raped than to have a police officer use excessive force against you. So this idea that our police force is this crazy, out of control, racist group of individuals is complete garbage information. The numbers don't lie. These are the numbers. And we're just warming up. So we're going to look at 2018 police shootings, okay? So this is from the year 2018. Of the 998 total police deadly use of force, here is the breakdown by race. So there's 998 total incidents in the year 2018, so less than 1,000. 456 of those people killed, which makes up roughly 45% of death by police use of force, were white. So 456 of those people who were killed were white. 229 were black. 165 were Hispanic. 41 were other, and 107 were unknown. So almost half of the people who were killed by law enforcement in the year 2018 were white. So this idea that the police are out there just targeting and killing black people is garbage information. Now, I realize that our black population is a much smaller population than the white population, but bear with me a little bit. It goes into age. So according to 2016 FBI data, black men commit murder 572.8% times more than white men. 572.8% more than white men. Rapes are committed at a level of 146.1% greater, and robbery at a number of 617.9% greater. Aggravated assault at a 203.3% greater, and violent crime in a total of 263.6% greater. Those are some pretty huge numbers. Let me go back to that first number. Black men commit murder 572.8% more than white men. And then the rest of them, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, are all higher. In 2018, once again, there were a total of 998 police deadly use of force incidents. Of the incidents, 95.3% of those suspects were armed. So almost 100% of the suspects who had deadly force used against them by law enforcement were armed. 555 of them had guns, 185 had knives, 33 had a replica weapon, 38 were using their vehicle, 105 were other, 35 were unknown, and only 47 of the 998 were unarmed. Of that 47, which is only 4.7%, of the unarmed people, 23 of those unarmed people were white that were killed. 18 of them were black and 6 were Hispanic. In almost half of those cases, 22, where the suspect was unarmed, non-lethal force was attempted and failed prior to the use of deadly force. So we're not saying that racism doesn't exist and that racism doesn't exist in law enforcement, but it is extremely, extremely, extremely rare. And this idea that our whole country is racist, if you think about this, that's garbage information. You know it, and I know it. And that our law enforcement is racist, you also know that is garbage information. We know this. And all we have to do is look past the information that we're being bombarded with on a regular basis. There was something else here. So Black Americans make up 13% of the population, but according to FBI numbers, they account for 50% of murders and 38% of all violent crimes. Chicago gives us some great examples. And let's not forget the insanely strict gun laws there, by the way. So Chicago, the state of Illinois has pretty strict gun laws. And they were forced to adopt a concealed carry law not all that long ago. Back in 2014, they were forced to adopt a concealed carry law. And during the first 8 months of 2016, so we're going back a few years, 2,818 people were shot. So that's the first 8 months of 2016. Only 12 of those 2,818 people were shot by police officers. That's 1/2 of 1%. In cities with larger Black populations, homicide rates have skyrocketed in the recent time. In Washington, D.C., homicides are up 54%. In Cleveland, up 90%. The overall homicide rate is up 17%. So, I mean, these are just part of the numbers that we have. And all of this stuff says that the idea that we're being force-fed by the media and our government is just plain not true. So, and here's the thing. If our media, if our politicians, if Hollywood, if these professional athletes like LeBron James, if they will spread false information and if they will lie to us about one thing, what else will they spread false information and lie to us about other things? So there's a lot of stuff going on. And if you just look at real numbers and real statistics, you'll see that you're being lied to. Another thing that just happened recently, this Ma'Khia Bryant in Columbus, she was a young Black female who was killed by a white law enforcement officer. And there was protests and I think riots. I'm not 100% sure about that. I think there was some violent protests, which are also referred to as riots, that happened shortly afterwards. And that happened the same day that they were reading the verdict came out for the Derek Chauvin trial. And so sorry, I just lost my screen here. So that happened the same day, like roughly the same time period that the verdict came out for the Derek Chauvin trial, which there was a lot of jury, what's the word I'm looking for? Like people in power were trying to push the jury towards a certain decision there. And I don't know what the right decision was. I don't know what was going through that guy's head at the time period. But if you sat there and you listened to that whole trial, if you listened to the important parts of it and the people that actually investigated it, not just hearsay or what they saw on the same video that we all saw, I mean, it seems to me like he may have been a little excessive in time, but what he was doing was taught in their law enforcement training in where he was at. So, I mean, Should it have been a murder charge? I don't know, but that guy was the jury was kind of persuaded to run a certain route, and you know, they everybody knew everybody in this country knew that if they didn't come out with a guilty verdict, that riots and protests and burning of cities was going to ensue. And I mean, that was what do all these business owners and all these homeowners and all these other law enforcement officers have to do with that one minor situation? And then they make this guy out, George Floyd, to be like some kind of hero. And the guy was a violent drug addict and criminal who held a gun to a pregnant woman's belly to rob her. You know, so he was not a good guy. He was not some kind of saint. And you know, but the news media and our politicians, I mean, they come out and thanked him and they're trying to make a law after him. And I mean, should the guy have died? No, but he wasn't a saint, that's for sure. And they want the people out there to look at our criminals like we should revere them, and look at the good people in our communities like we should you know, treat them like trash. You know, what's really sad is that with all this stuff going on, our law enforcement community is going to disappear. The number of good people trying to get into law enforcement is gonna dwindle and go away. And then we'll be left with nothing but the terrible officers that have no other options. And I mean, I have a lot of really good friends that are law enforcement officers, and they're really good people who want to do the right things. And the one guy who's a good friend of mine, his son just graduated a law enforcement academy, and he tried to talk his son out of it. And this guy's a career law enforcement officer who's done some pretty awesome stuff in his career. And he was not super thrilled about his son joining, you know, law enforcement right now. But I mean, as an adult, it's his decision. But so back to that Ma'Khia Bryant thing. Um, the news media and the people out there wanted to portray that like it's another white officer taking racist action against a black individual. Did you see the video? You know, let me pull something up here, and I'm going to try to do this without I'm trying to something new here. I'm going to try to share something with you, and so bear with me a second. So I don't know how well you can see this video or this picture, but if you can see my screen, this is that Ma'Khia Bryant, and she is right here with the black shirt on, and then there's another person right here in pink, and she has a knife right here in her hand, and she is about to her arm is going at an upward angle. So she's going to try to stab this other female in the chest or in the throat or in the face with that knife that she has in her hand. And when law enforcement showed up on the scene, you watch the body cam video, and she's going after one girl who was right in this vicinity. This girl falls down, and then she turns and goes after this other female who was already standing out in the driveway where, you know, there was, you know, the incident wasn't taking place at. And then the officer has no choice but to use deadly force. You know, he's trying to protect an innocent life in this situation, and that's training everywhere, you know. And the people try to say, oh, she dropped the knife. She only dropped the knife when she dropped. And so that's bad information they're trying to tell you. And how do you know? How would you know from the backside looking at this person that it is a teenager? I mean, she's probably 5'3", 5'4", maybe a little taller, maybe closer to 6 foot, and she probably weighs upwards of 200 pounds. So how can you tell that this is a 16-year-old from the backside while she is freaking out and savagely attacking multiple people in this area where law enforcement was just called because of a deadly situation? So she didn't drop the knife. And there's multiple videos and camera angles of that where it shows the whole incident. And they're trying to, every time stuff like this happens, they try to remove it from social media as fast as possible. Like, I mean, all this stuff, the total different topic. Go back to pre-election. Look at all the stuff that was going on with Hunter. That's all I'm going to say. If you said anything about it on any social media platform, you were banned and you disappeared. Okay. And then after the fact, after the the so-called decision is made on who is our current administration, the information came out that, yeah, they're under investigation for drug use and child stuff, his computer, overseas dealings, all this other stuff. So come to find out that all that stuff that they were saying was bad information, and they were kicking you off social media because was true. You know, a lot of these things that they scream, oh, conspiracy theory and conspiracy theorists, come to find out most of it's true. Once the truth finally comes out, we usually come to find out that most of it's true. So, but there's people out there that want to feed you a narrative, you know. So here's what we have to do. Stop listening to what these people tell you. Stop listening to I don't even watch the news anymore. I don't care if it's Fox or CNN or MSNBC or whatever. I don't watch any of the news. I find my information for myself. And because I don't trust any of them. They all lie to us. They all have an agenda. Maybe some of them are good, maybe some of them aren't. I don't know, but it's real hard to decipher them out. So stop taking what people say to you as truth, especially when they're all saying the same thing. That should tell you something. You know, there's an agenda here, and it's to divide us. And so stop listening to that stuff and start preparing yourself for if things do take a turn for the worse, you know. And I'm going to come back in another video, and I'm going to talk about some of the stuff I talk about in my classes about setting your house and yourself up for success, and training and preparing your family. And we can't be caught off guard, you know, because the people in power right now, like I said earlier, they're trying to open our borders, take away our rights, which include our gun rights, release all the criminals out in the streets, and take our guns away at the same time. And all of that is a recipe for disaster for law-abiding citizens. I don't care what side of the fence politically you sit on. That's a recipe for disaster for all of us. Because if we have no way to protect and defend ourselves, then we're done. And that's kind of what they want, you know. And there's news, there's things that's going on behind the scenes right now too. So they're trying to put something through that would make DC a state, which would, I mean, that's the most liberal place in the United States, or one of them, which would automatically give the senators and representatives on the left side more people every election cycle. And, you know, DC's never been a state. Why are we going to make it a state now? It's a city. It's tiny. And so why would we make it a state? Doesn't even make any sense. But they're trying to do that so that they can stack the deck in their favor. They're talking about stacking the Supreme Court once again, which they said they would never do. And they're even going as far as talking about making our military vehicles completely run on green energy. We'd get destroyed if that happened. How can a fighter jet work on solar power? How can a battleship work on solar power? How can, you know, our vehicles and tanks and Humvees and amphibious assault vehicles and our boats, you know, small personnel boats, how can all that stuff work on solar or wind or whatever you want to? It wouldn't work. We'd get destroyed in an instant. So they're pushing this stuff that's all bad for all of us. And we need to come together, Black, white, Latino, Asian. If you're an American, you're an American. And, you know, we need to come together as Americans and stand up and say enough is enough. And, you know, I'm not advocating for violence, but, you know, you need to be prepared just in case. And, you know, you got to train. You got to train to be prepared. And that's why we're starting to run our advanced courses again. So I had a lot more stuff to talk about, but I've dragged on long enough. And there was more things I wanted to put in here. But so if you're free next Saturday and you're in the Central Michigan area, you know, get a hold of us and come to that class. It'll be a fun, educational, informational, very, very good training day. It starts at 9 a.m. at the Central Michigan Sportsman's Club, and we're minimum of 100 rounds. And if you go to Wayne's World video number 5, all of the gear list and everything else is in there. And until then, thank you very much. See you next time.